Follow along, Catholic Pilgrims, as we follow French doctor of the Church, St. Francis de Sales, through his book, Introduction to the Devout Life. Tune in as we read through this practical guide for living out the Catholic faith well. Welcome back, Catholic Pilgrims. Today is another great day to read and learn from St. Francis. Thomas Sowell, a great American economist, philosopher, and political commentator, writes and says many excellent things. He is truly a brilliant man. One of my favorite quotes of his is, quote, "I have never understood why it is greed to want to keep the money you have earned, but not greed to want to take somebody else's money," unquote. We hear pretty consistently that the rich are bad and that the government should take their money and give it to others. I hate this notion for several reasons. Number one, we need the wealthy to create jobs. Taxing them to death kills innovation and business growth. Number two, you remove charity when you force people to be charitable. And number three, nobody, even the poor, wants their money taken from them and forcibly given to others. Yet we demand the rich not only do it, but we call them wicked if they don't love having their money stripped from them. Is it wrong to be rich? No. Can being rich lead you to being greedy? Yes, but so can poverty. Greed doesn't suddenly become okay if you are poor. It's always wrong to want to strip from others what is rightfully theirs and what they have rightfully earned. Our topic for today is on having a poverty of spirit in the midst of wealth. So let's turn to chapter 14 of the third part. Chapter 14, Poverty of Spirit in the Midst of Wealth. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Woe then to those who are rich in spirit, for their portion will be hell. He is rich in spirit whose heart is in his riches, and whose riches fill his heart. He is poor in spirit who has not riches in his heart, nor his heart in riches. The house down builds its nest in the shape of a ball, leaving only one little opening at the top, and so strong and impenetrable is it that when the waves of the sea surround it, no water ever enters. But always rising on the waves, the birds remain open, and in the midst of the sea as lords over it. Even so should your heart be open only to heaven and impenetrable to riches and earthly things. If you possess them, preserve your heart from loving them. Let it rise above them and be poor in the midst of wealth, and master of its riches. Beware of losing the spirit of holiness in the good things of the world, but let your hearts always be the superior, not in them, but above them. There is a difference between possessing poison and being poisoned. Apothecaries keep poisons for various uses, but they are not poisoned, because the poison is but in their shops, not in themselves. And so you may possess riches without being poisoned by them. That is, if you have them in your house or in your purse and not in your heart. Being rich in substance, but poor in spirit. It is a great happiness for a Christian to be actually rich, but poor in spirit, for thus he can use wealth and its advantages in this world and yet have the merit of poverty as regards the next. No man will own that he is avaricious. Everyone repudiates this despicable narrowness of heart. Men excuse themselves on the plea of providing for their children or on that of prudence and forethought. They never have too much, but always find some good reason for seeking more. And even the greatest misers not only will not confess their avarice, but in their consciences they do not believe themselves to be avaricious. For it is as a burning fever, which as it grows stronger, is the less noticed by its victim. Moses beheld how fire from heaven burnt a bush without consuming it. But the profane fire of avarice consumes and devours the miser without burning him. For amidst the fiercest lusts he fans himself with an imaginary and delicious breeze, and believes that insatiable thirst is but natural and rightful. If you desire eagerly and anxiously that which you have not, though you may say that you do not seek to acquire it unjustly, you are still really avaricious. If a man longs anxiously and earnestly to drink, I'll bet he desires water only. He gives undeniable proof that he is feverish. I doubt if it is possible to desire to possess honestly that which another possesses, for by this desire we must involve the other's loss. If he possess a thing justly, has he not a better right in justice to keep it than we have to wish for it? And why should we interfere with his convenience by wishing for it? At least, if the desire is not unjust, it is uncharitable, for we should not like anyone to desire, even honestly, that which we honestly wish to keep for ourselves. Such was the sin of Achab, who wished honestly to possess himself of Naboth's vineyard, whilst in his turn Naboth wished with greater justice to retain it. Achab indulged the wish for a long time, eagerly and anxiously, and thus displeased God. Do not give way to the wish for that which is another's until he, on his part, wishes to part with it. Then his desire will render you not only just, but charitable. I would not forbid you to increase your means and possessions as long as you do it not only with justice, but with gentleness and charity. But if you are very strongly attached to what you do possess, if you are absorbed in your possessions and they fill your heart, engrossing your thoughts and filling you with anxious fears lest you lose them, believe me, you are still somewhat feverish. For fevered patients drink the water that is given them with an eagerness and relish not usual to those who are in perfect health. You cannot take great delight in anything without its engrossing your heart more or less. If you love any of your possessions and find that your heart is grievously afflicted, be sure that you love them dearly, for nothing so well tells our love for what we lose as our grief for its loss. Therefore, do not let your desires for that which you have not assume a definite shape, and do not fix your heart on that which you have. Do not be overpowered by such losses as you may meet with, and then you may venture to think that although you are rich in fact, you are not in spirit, but that being poor in spirit, you are blessed, for the kingdom of heaven is yours. When my husband was a brand new second lieutenant, we headed off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to start our military life. And we didn't have much. We both had just graduated from college. Our furniture was all mismatched hand-me-downs. We had a 1985 baby blue Buick Century. We didn't have designer clothes, and we lived in old base housing. But we were happy, very happy. All our needs were met, and we lived within our means. We knew that if we saved and worked hard, that we could move up the socioeconomic ladder, but we also knew that it would take time and smart financial choices. My husband worked on base mostly with older government civilians. One weekend, we were invited over to a coworker's house for a barbecue. The house was in a very nice area. It was very big and filled with lots of very nice things. It made our little base townhome look like a hovel. And the entire time we were there, my husband's coworker went on and on about how amazing his house was and that, quote, if we worked hard, we too could have what he had, unquote. It was like he was constantly trying to make us jealous of him, and while I thought his place was nice, it just seemed like a place to show off. Over and over again, he commented on his wealth, and he just wouldn't stop talking about it. He clearly had let it go to his head, and this caused his guests, especially us, to not feel really that welcomed. I contrast this with another coworker a few years down the line. We had moved to Panama City, stationed at Tyndall Air Force Base, and Dustin worked with this older civilian who had this great house. He had completely remodeled it and made it a place to welcome people over. He had this awesome pool and a pool table, a karaoke machine, games for kids, and he always had lots of drinks and snacks. You never went without. And while you were there, you never felt like he was being pretentious or trying to make you jealous. In fact, because he was so generous with his space and his wealth, you felt incredibly welcomed, and it was so much fun to hang out at his house. He did such a good job of using his wealth to lavish it on others and build community. And while everyone loved his home and his things, nobody seemed jealous, but instead wanted to be like him when they acquired more. His charity was infectious. St. Francis says, quote, "There is a difference between possessing poison and being poisoned. You may possess riches without being poisoned by them. That is, if you have them in your house or in your purse and not in your heart. Being rich in substance but poor in spirit. It is a great happiness for a Christian to be actually rich but poor in spirit, for thus he can use wealth and its advantages in this world and yet have the merit of poverty as regards the next." Unquote. It's not wrong to be rich. As St. Francis says, you can use your wealth to share charitably with others, but we must do that freely, or charity is stripped from us and everyone actually loses the benefits. The first guy in my story was poisoned by his wealth. The second guy was not. He didn't let it consume him, and therefore everyone benefited, including himself. And he was a great role model for us younger people. I still think of him often and try to make my house feel welcoming and open for people's enjoyment. So, in all that regards wealth and possessions, let us follow St. Francis's advice. Quote, "Do not give way to the wish for that which is another's until he, on his part, wishes to part with it. Then his desire will render you not only just, but charitable." Unquote. We'll stop here for today, Catholic Pilgrims. We'll be back together soon, and until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.